Music from this episode is available on the Twin Peaks Evangelion Spotify playlist. Check the show notes for a link.
When I was just a little boy, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. A cruel angel's thesis will someday fly high from the window if memories are betrayed by the overflowing burning pathos. Holding the sky in your arms, rise up, young boy, and make yourself a legend.
Beautiful.
Welcome, hello, kia ora, and hi. This is Twin Peaks Evangelion. I'm Craig, and I'm here with my compadre, Vincent. Vincent, how are you?
I'm doing well. I have survived instrumentality. I'm ready to talk about it.
Excellent. I gotta say, you're looking decidedly good for a pile of orange liquid.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, what do we usually do on this show, Vinny? What do we usually do?
Our usual shtick is that we cover Twin Peaks and Evangelion. Twin Peaks being the biggest show imaginable created by David Lynch, and Evangelion was the biggest anime created by Hideaki Anno. But today is a little different, Craig, isn't it?
Oh, is it? What are we doing today?
Well, by a sheer act of God and Lillith, you watched all 26 episodes of the original Neon Genesis Evangelion anime series.
Oh, yes, that's right. No, sorry, my memory's terrible. Yes, no, you're right. I have been doing that. And, Vinny, right off the bat, I have some thoughts about this show.
Wait, what? Really?
Oh, yes.
Wonder why. But also, dear listener, this is huge because Craig saw the rebuilds and the film end of Evangelion before even getting to the initial starting point.
Yes, so I've done it in completely the wrong order, but I feel that we'll get there. Mm-hmm. We'll get there. So, so we're going to be talking mostly about Evangelion today, the original anime that, was, as Vinny said, created by Hideaki Anno, ran originally between 1995 to 1996, and it has gone on to secure its place in the annals of animation legend. It has, in fact, risen up and made itself legend.
As a young boy should.
As a young boy should. So, how do we want to start this off, Vinny? How do we want to run this?
I want to ask, what was your expectations doing this before you even started? Did you have any ideas what you were going to see, or some notion about how things were going to go? Tell me, what was your thought process going in?
Going in, we definitely talked about this on pod, following on from the Rebuild films and End of Evangelion. I was resistant to start this. I have a busy life. I have 2 young kids. I don't have all that much free time to watch stuff. And I thought, as far as, what limited time that I have to, absorb media, I think, a 30-year-old cartoon from Japan is probably not high on the list. Yeah, so I was initially resistant to start this, but I thought, you know what? I'll give it a go.
You're a typical content creator, hurting for your craft.
Exactly, this is all for the content, baby.
Oh, you poor. So, Craig, let's go to the beginning, which not the beginning of the story. Let's talk about the opening. How did you feel watching Cruel Angel's Thesis opening the first time you saw it?
Oh my lord. Okay. The opening scene, or the opening title credit sequence is like I was just gobsmacked. I thought, because I had some idea of what the show might be based on the Rebuild movies, right?
Right.
But watching this, like, ostensibly like a, like almost like a Bond movie, you know, opening scene with, you know, stylized silhouettes of women reclining seductively and, you know, these weird shots of clouds and, you know, Shinji's head turning and facing the camera, all this kind of stuff. I was just like, oh my lord, what is this? This is so wild. And that fucking song, I swear to God, the song, man. You know what the thing with the song is?
What is it?
Okay. The thing with the song, right, is that because I don't speak Japanese, I don't know what the words are, and you know, and honestly, reading the subtitles for it, I was just like, "That's what they're saying." Like, this is like, you know, this is like grade school poetry. You know, it's so. This is like something a 14-year-old would write, but the tune to the song is so fucking catchy. It is the catchiest song. I found myself, whenever I have the song stuck in my head, I find myself basically making up alternate lyrics in English for it.
Oh, yes.
And oftentimes, more often than not, the lyrics are usually about a cruel angel who's, you know, developing a thesis. So typically it would kind of go something like this. Like a cruel angel working on a thesis, we must never ever try to resist.
Yes, Craig, yes.
And if you feel like you might fall to pieces, maybe you should just have a chat to Jesus.
Oh, what have I done to you, Craig?
But honestly, like, I found myself like humming this around the house and, like, you know, just singing these stupid lyrics, and my kids are just like looking at me like, "Has their dad lost their mind? What is this?" And they're like, "What's this song you keep singing, Dad?" I'm like, "Oh, it's too complicated." You're only 8 years old. I'm not going to explain it.
Yeah, what does an 8-year-old have to do with Evangelion? I mean, it's like, what kind of 8-year-old would watch this on late night and then just be like, that was cool, and then come back to it years later like, oh, why was I watching this so young?
I can't imagine that watching this as a child. It'd be a traumatic experience.
Right, what would that person grow up to be? A freak, probably.
Probably a freak. Yeah, probably someone sipping a can of Pepsi, wearing a tuxedo t-shirt in a dimly lit room.
That's weird, Craig. I do these things naked. Why are you making false accusations about me? Come on.
Alright, I'm just going to turn the video off. Yeah, so that, like, yeah, Cruel Angel's thesis. Like, what? Okay.
Now, to be clear, you listen to it every single time and never hit that skip intro button?
Oh, absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Never once have I hit that skip button. Nope, not once.
I remember when this hit Netflix, everyone was like, it's against the Geneva Convention to hit skip intro on this show.
Like, this song is, like, super popular, right? Like, it's a karaoke staple.
Karaoke staple, like, every single list of, like, top 10 anime openings, like, this is number 1 or number 2. Like, this has charted so many times. Like, I believe it charted again once it hit Netflix, like, on certain, like, pop, you know, charts and all that. Like, dang, this hit still bangs.
It's such a weird song. Like, it's so weird. And I mean, just considering some of the music choices that they make sort of later on in the series as well, it seems, I mean, not entirely out of place for maybe the first half of the season, but like the back end of the series, you know, where it's all like these, you know, really evocative, you know, classical orchestral pieces. It is just really jarring to sort of lead into this, you know, into that. It's wild.
All right, Craig, let's get into the thick of it. So I'm going to split this up a little bit. So let's start with 1 through 6, which is basically 1.11 original version. How did you feel in this first section of basically you seeing the events of 1.11 with tiny little differences, but also older animation?
Yeah, people complain about the original series being I guess like an episode, a monster of the week type of thing. Yeah, I didn't mind it too much, to be honest. Like, I thought that I thought that it was interesting how the angels were kind of different and how they sort of evolved. It did get a little bit samey, with some of the angels, but I did like how they kind of evolved throughout the thing, and they sort of morphed, and they had sort of different approaches to the angels. I mean, we'll talk definitely about the angels. In terms of the overall narrative for those first few episodes, I mean, it was largely the same story that we'd seen in 1.11 or whatever. Immediately, the thing that struck me about it was definitely the animation style did look a lot older, which it was, and I could tell that there was some real sort of time and cost-saving methods used, the single frames that, linger, the minimalist animation style and stuff like that. But I felt like I was compelled to keep going with it. Like, it was really, it sort of did drive things along, even though it was kind of a relatively slow pace. Some of those initial episodes had some of my favorite kind of moments from it, though. Mm. And some of my favorite shots. The scene where, I think it was either the first or the second episode, where, Shinji is in Nerve and he's been given the little Nerve guidebook, and he's going down the elevator. He's, absorbed in this instruction manual, basically, and the elevator's going past like just the enormous Ava hand. Just like, wow, like what? Yeah, that was cool.
It is amazing because here's the thing: most mecha shows of anime, they forget to make the sense of scale, and then here's Anno in just one beautiful shot showing you this small little pilot against this giant thing he's about to pilot. Like, just that beautiful shot of, he's like, just more.
Yeah, no, that was wonderful. And yeah, some of the like the background, the background art is spectacular. Like, the first time you kind of see inside the Geo-Front, where there's like it's like the city is kind of inverted.
Yes.
Like the buildings are kind of down, set into the ground. Like, some of that background stuff it looks spectacular. Yeah, and some of the character introductions are great. Yeah, I really like Gendo's kind of introduction, how dismissive he is, all that kind of shit. Yeah, no, I liked those first few episodes. I'm kind of just pulling up like an episode synopsis in front of me, because I probably should have said this from the outset as well. I have only watched the entire series the once,
right.
And apologies in advance to any otaku out there who are, for any egregious errors or, any mistakes that I make.
How could you guys forget that at episode 3, frame 24, you can see a slight little shot of Masato's butt? I mean, come on.
Oh, no, I'd never forget that.
But here's something. Were you confused when there wasn't a hint of Kaworu like there was at the end of original of then Rebuild 1.11?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had learned somehow that Kaworu makes an appearance, like doesn't make his appearance until much further down the track. I wasn't expecting there to be no reference to him at all until like the second to last episode or something, like
episode
the episode
24.
before the finale, the 2-part finale. And I think that's something that I wanted to bring up, actually, was that in another show, something like that would have got a much worse reaction, I think. Like, leaving such a pivotal character to right at the end, to not even having any kind of foreshadowing of them or anything like that until their first appearance right at the very, very end. That would have been like a real sort of red flag and leave a sour taste in people's mouths. But, I don't think I could criticize that decision. I mean, potentially they could have made some reference to how the final angel, was going to be a messenger, or that,
right.
Or, I heard Seeley is recruiting a new pilot as a backup, or, some sort of offhand reference earlier in the thing. Any lesser show would have done that, but somehow it works here.
And the other big difference between original and 1.11, Masato knows that Lillith is in the basement of Nerve. In 1.11, she shows Shinji, this is what we're fighting to protect. But throughout the narrative of the original series, it's this whole mystery that she eventually gets into. How do you feel about that?
I don't think I remembered that Masato identified that giant thing as Lilith in the movie. But it was interesting that there was this whole confusion about, whether, everyone was sort of led to believe that was Adam, throughout the thing, and then it's only sort of revealed later on that it's actually Lilith, and you're like, oh, okay, well, what does that kind of mean? And yeah, the whole piece with, Kaji bringing the embryo of Adam and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it took me a while to sort of wrap my head around that whole thing about who or what Adam is and what Lilith is. And I got to say too, like I have been doing a lot of sort of extracurricular work on on this. Since watching the series, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and trying to read up.
You've been playing all the
stuff.
dating sim games.
I've been playing all the dating sim games. Yeah, I've played that unlicensed game where you reenact the first scene from End of Evangelion.
Yeah, it's on the Wii. You gotta shake it and then...
Yeah, no, I found that one on the deep web somewhere. No, I'm probably going to cut that out. Yeah, so it did take me a while to sort of wrap my head around, what Adam was and what Lilith was and how that all sort of fit together. I think I'm nearly there with understanding what's happening.
Look, I've been in this years more than you, and I'm still nearly there.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so let's jump to 2.22, where the divergence really happens between the original and the anime. So how do you like Asuka's introduction? She has a whole episode for it versus like just the opening of 2.22. What do you think about the differences between those two ways she's introduced?
I love the episode where she's introduced. The underwater angel, the playing hopscotch on the battleships, the grumpy American sailors that won't let anyone do anything. Kaji being a fucking boy. Yeah, I love that shit. And forgive me, is this the episode where Shinji and Oscar are both in the Ava and she sort of does that whole think in German and he's like, Bratwurst? I don't know. Yeah, that cracked me up. That's great. I think it was a really cool introduction to that character as, just someone who's just so cocky and so self-assured of her own fucking excellence, and not putting up with any bullshit. I think it was a great introduction. I really liked it. I think it was more organic in the series than it was in the movie, because I'm casting my mind back. If I'm remembering this right, in the movie, it's other characters who are sort of, conveying how cool and how, how great Asuka is. Whereas here it's just like, it's just her actions basically. And, she sort of demonstrates that herself, which I thought was really cool.
Now, Craig, did you notice anything weird about her name?
I do know that it had been changed for the movie, and her name is, in the series, is Oscar Langley Soryu. I can't actually remember what it is in the films.
In the films, it's Oscar Langley Shikanami.
Shikanami, okay. So what is that a reference to?
Okay, so that was a huge mystery between 1.1, 1.11, and 3.33 that we didn't learn until the final Thrice Upon a Time, where in that scene where she's talking to Rhea, how, you're programmed to care for him, you just want to go out and find him because that's what your programming is. You're part of the Ayanami series, and I'm part of the Shikinami series. So, Asuka is in a line of clones that are made to pilot the Ava in the rebuilds.
Wow, okay. Completely missed that. Completely forgotten about that. Okay. Whereas here in the series, she's just a
girl with mommy issues.
Yeah, fuck.
So let's delve into that. How did you feel about her backstory?
That was rough, man. Like, that was really rough. Yeah, I mean, if I'm sort of remembering this right, and if I've sort of got it clear in my head, so her mother was a scientist at the European or the German nerve, right?
Yes.
Yeah. She tried to sort of do some kind of contact experiment with one of the Avas, right?
Yes.
Just similar to what Yui did. But that sort of backfired and sort of took her, I guess, her sanity with it, which sort of left her mentally a shell of a person. She sort of thought that this doll was her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was some of the grisliest stuff, man. Like that shot of the doll sort of hanging from the noose,
Mm-hmm.
and the doll with its head ripped off. Flashback scenes there with little tiny toddler Oscar running down the hallway and the door opening several times. Oh man. Keeping that backstory for sort of so far into the series, I think was a genius move.
Mm-hmm.
Leading up to that, you kind of have established this character who is so cocky and is so sure of herself and is so absolutely confident in her abilities, and she's trying to prove her worth, and to show the world that she can do everything herself. Throughout the series, it comes across as being just immature and cocky, but then you sort of get that revelation towards the end, and you're just like, wow, it all sort of fits into place. And I think that I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I think that is true of people that have gone through that kind of trauma, is that often they will either sort of turn inward and withdraw from society and in whatever ways, or go to the other extreme and try and show how how fine with everything they are and how successful and great they are. They'll try and overcompensate, and I think through Oscar and Shinji you sort of get both extremes of that.
Yeah.
Having young children myself,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was nasty.
Yeah, like I agree. It makes me love Asuka more, but also it makes me love the moment in EOE when she accepts herself and just goes all badass mode against the artificial Avas.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Does her mother speak to her in that moment?
So it's implied that it's almost like the same thing between Yui and Unit 1, how there's some part of her mom in Unit 0 too, because you get that part where she's like, oh mom, you're always with me, you're always protecting me. And it's like, either it's implying that that's what the experiment was that Asuka's mom did, just like Yui, or it's more like her just moving on from the trauma and just accepting that her mom, look, that was your mom, she's gonna love you, instead of what you saw at the end of your mom's life. Yeah,
the husk of a person who killed herself was not your mom.
Now, Craig, another big difference between the original timeline and 2.22 was the person that was inside the Ava coming from America. It wasn't Asuka, it was Toji. How do you feel about that?
And this is another example. This is similar to the late introduction of Kaworu. I think I had also absorbed somehow that that was one of the changes between the film and the series, was that Toji was selected as the pilot for that sort of story arc. Only knowing Toji from the films, that seemed weird to me. I was just like, oh man, Toji sucks. Like, Toji's he's just a clown. Like he's a buffoon. He says stupid, he makes stupid jokes about how men shouldn't be cooking and, shit like this.
God, that's so bad. God.
He's just a buffoon, basically. And I thought that was a really weird decision that, they would make him a pilot, just based on what I'd seen. And again, in a lesser show, that would have been a valid criticism. But here, again, I think it just works. I really liked how it kind of took a whole episode to reveal the fact that Toji was the pilot to Shinji. Like everyone kind of knew about it, and I think the audience kind of knew about it. Put the pieces together through the episode, and then again, if I'm remembering this right, there's kind of that shot. I think someone's talking about who the pilot is, and then it just kind of cuts to the shot of the basketball court or something like that. Yeah. Really cool way to do it. Yeah, I just thought that was really nice. That's the other thing. When a piece of information like that is withheld from the main character and the audience kind of knows it, but the character doesn't, that can be really hit and miss. Here, after the big, huge battle where, I've got this written down. I think it's Toji was in 03.
I think it's '03. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's right. So that was ripped apart. Unit 01 after Genjo sort of switches to the dummy plug, while they're battling I think the 13th angel. Yeah, so just to go through that visceral scene, and then for Shinji to discover that it's Toji is just like, it's just such a gut punch. Like, whoa. Yeah. Yeah.
Some things I like is that those shots you're talking about of the implication of Toji, some of those shots are recreated in 2.22. And it's like, oh, they're trying to do the thing where it's like, oh, it's just like the original series. But if you're paying attention, you hear that Asuka is going to be part of it. Like, oh, shit, wait, no, they're actually flipping the script and all that. And also another big difference between the two is like, after the incident happens, you get to see Toji wake up in the hospital and he's comforted by his classmate. Where in 2.22, it's blatantly left a mystery if Asuka was killed.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Even though that's the last shot of Toji in the series, like he's basically killed off because that's the last thing you see. You don't see him or class rep for the remainder of the series, so he was killed off from the narrative, but not from his life.
Yeah, and he lost a leg.
Yeah, so his leg was like all bandaged up, and I believe he lost it.
Yeah, right. Remind me, in Thrice Upon a Time. Is it Toji that ended up marrying class rep, or was it Kensuke?
Toji got with class rep, and he became the doctor of the town.
That's right, yeah.
Which is such an interesting thread to follow up on, since it's not even established in the rebuilds, it's only established in the original series, so to pay that off after all this time was really cool for me to see.
Yeah, right.
Because it was that thing where class rep was like, I need to cook him something, I need to give him a message, and then it cuts to him being destroyed by Dummy Plug Unit 1.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, that was harsh to see as well, because you're just like, oh, poor class rep. I felt so bad for her. Also felt really bad for her when they have to deliver some stuff to... I think they have to deliver some stuff to Ray's apartment, some school stuff, and Toji's just like, oh, I feel weird going to a girl's house by myself, and class rep's like, oh, well, I can go with you. He's just like, Shinji, come with me, my dude. Like, I was just like, oh, Toji, man, come on. Like,
read the room.
I know you're a teenager, but dude, this girl is like, that's one of those posts on Reddit where it's just like, men, whenever you completely missed a girl, girl's advances towards you. That's a story he's gonna remember. Yeah, she probably reminded him of that, when they sort of finally got together, like
absolutely
15 years later, whatever. Yeah.
Now, Craig, let me ask you: did you miss that one children's folk lullaby song that was in 2.22 during this moment? Did you miss it, or were you too traumatized to notice?
I didn't notice that it wasn't there, but I do generally miss that song when it's not playing in general. So yeah, I really liked its inclusion in the movie. I thought it was perfectly fit, that scene. Yeah. Cool.
So another little differences between the original and 2.22 is the infamous shot in the elevator with Ray and Asuka. How do you feel about it?
I love that shit. Like, I love it.
Right?
I love it. Because I had heard that there was this scene in an elevator, and I didn't know anything about it. And then it sort of came on, and I was just like, oh shit, is this the scene? And I'm just like, wait, hang on, is this still the scene? It's going on for so long. And then I'm just like, is my computer frozen? and then Asuka kind of just like, shakes her head or something, and he's like, okay, no, this is a deliberate choice. And then Ray, what does Ray say to her? He's
something about, why do you pilot, or something like that. And she's like, what'd you say?
Yeah, exactly. It was just like, but no, I loved it. I feel like it just creates so much tension. I mean, elevators are the most awkward public spaces you can probably get to, because, it's an enclosed space, you're in really close proximity to people, but it's not like you're there for a long time. It's a short journey, but it just, every second you're there just feels like an eternity, because, you're just waiting and anticipating, and you never talk to people in elevators. It's real awkward. And I felt that devoting an entire, like, it was over a minute, wasn't it?
Yes.
Or close to a minute. And just devoting that amount of time just to that mostly static shot really captured that. And you could tell that, you know, I mean, things were tense with Oscar and Ray anyway, and that just amplified it, like, just to the extreme. I do want to talk about the long shots, because there are a few of them in the series. There's that one where Shinji's at the train station and Masato's just sort of waiting there for him, and you know that's just a real nice kind of moment, because you know again it's kind of creating this awkwardness around the situation, and you know that a real feeling of indecisiveness about whether he's going to go back or not. There's also the infamous scene with Kaworu right at the end. That was another moment where I was like questioning whether my computer had frozen, because you know just the way that he holds him, and if it weren't for that music that was underscoring it,
yes.
you know, you would think that it was just that it was just had frozen or something. But again, that just added to this whole indecisiveness, and this is the I absolutely don't know what the right move here is. It's just like to linger on that is just to really it just ratchets us up that tension so much. You know, often in film and TV and stuff, when you know the filmmakers want to create a sense of tension, there's lots of fast-paced stuff and like lots of stuff happening and a real sense of overwhelm. But just to linger on a static shot with, you know, not even fast-paced music or anything, but just something real slow and dirgy, and just really bathe in it for that extended period. It was just so good. And then it just cuts to black, and you just hear like the crunch and the scream. Oh man, masterful stuff. Masterful.
It is just so good. So let's talk about Kaworu, but let's emphasize on something that's in the original that's not in the rebuild. So Toji and Kaworu are chosen to be pilots from this thing called the Marduk Institute. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about them introducing this concept of this institute is making the choices about these kids being chosen a pilot, and then it's revealed it's all fake?
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, because because it does get revealed fairly early on that, you know, the Marduk Institute's just kind of like a sham. It's just like a front for Sealy. It's just kind of a front for them, and it doesn't, you know, really exist. But that is realistically how it would happen. You know, if there was some sort of secret cabal that was running, you know, the machinations, you know, to control the world's governments and, you know, all this kind of stuff, they would have to have these kind of sham operations as like the public face of what they were doing. So yeah, it's realistic in that sense. So I thought it was an interesting inclusion, because I think the way that it's revealed is, if I'm Kaji was just having a conversation with somebody about it, right? And they just sort of let slip that it's bullshit, basically.
Yeah, it was Kaji where his narrative was just infiltration of Nerve, get all the secrets, and then he would drop hints to Masato like, interesting, the next choice of the Eva pilot, the Marduk Institute is very convenient in that, and then that's when Masato keeps digging all that, and then it's revealed that everyone in Shinji's classroom is a candidate, basically. It's just them rounding up kids and being like, bring in the next one. So with that, let's go back to Kaworu, where it's like, how fucked up is it that Zele's like, fuck it, let's just make an angel the next pilot and fuck these guys.
Yeah, and this is what I had to sort of do a lot of work to sort of try and wrap my head around, the motivations of Zela, and and I guess the logistics of how they get to the third impact in human instrumentality. So Kaworu is a descendant of Adam, is that right? Mm-hmm. Or
yes.
Yeah, so
because the humans are the Lilin, the offspring of Lilith.
That's right. Yeah, right. So Zela's intention was that he would, go down to terminal dogma and basically merge with. Oh, that's right, because it was Adam's soul or something, right?
Yes.
And the idea was that if he merged with Adam's body, that would cause the third impact.
Yes.
Because he was also human and thus descended from Lilith. Is that?
Yes, because remember in EOE, when Gendo does it, he has Adam in his palm and is uniting it with Ray, a Lilin, who then jumps into Lilith. Right.
Yeah, okay.
So he did it, same ingredients, different equation.
Yeah, and that's what kind of prompts Kaworu to, get Shinji to kill him.
Mm-hmm. So how did you feel about the relationship building in this one episode between Shinji and Kaworu? How did you feel about it? It
seemed rushed. No, I should say, in a lesser show, it would have been, totally rushed. Any other show would have had Kaworu as an established character already. It probably would have been in his class. They probably, would have become friends over the course of the series. And then it's, this big bomb drop that, oh shit, he's an angel, right at the end. Man, I don't know how he did it, but somehow he managed to form this entire arc that would take other shows a whole season to do in 22 minutes or something. Yeah, I don't know how he did it, but man, great stuff.
It's so good. And I think it's a beautiful thing that Anno hit in the mid-90s. I think there is just a genuine love between Shinji and Kaworu, and to present that kind of love between two boys that's such, when you're in the middle of puberty, you're trying to figure out who you are, who do you love, and just creating this, I think, is very nice. I mean, sure, it ended badly, but I think it's so forward-moving in my eyes that just to demonstrate, Shinji wants love and Kaworu's willing to give that love in a fucked up sense, but how do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I think Kaworu is he just seems like a real innocent. He's in a way he's kind of like Ray in the last film. He's just really curious about stuff. He's kind of he's really childlike in that, he's childlike wonder basically. Shinji seems just trying to think how to phrase this. I feel like Shinji might be a bit of a late bloomer. In terms of developmentally and sort of having a clear sense of his sexuality or his kind of sexual desires or that kind of thing. He's never, apart from the infamous scene in End of Evangelion, he's never demonstrated any kind of level of being horny or anything like that. He's Toji and Kensuke are fawning over Masato, for instance. Yeah. Shinji just kind of rolls his eyes at them, kind of thing. He doesn't. It's like there's a level of immaturity there. So yeah, so their relationship, short as it was, seems really pure and kind of. I don't think there's. I mean, there's shades of homoeroticism.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's done from a place of purity and a place of. It doesn't come from a sexual place, I don't think. Does that make sense?
Yes. Now, how fucked is it that no matter the timeline, Kaworu loses his head because of the actions of Shinji?
Yeah, that's pretty fucked. True, I didn't think of that. I didn't make that connection until just now.
It took me 3 rewatches of 3.33 to realize, holy shit, he loses his head again because of the actions of Shinji. Fuck off, Anno, this is great.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you could argue that in the movie he puts that choker on himself.
Yeah.
So it's. But no, I think it's absolutely a really an interesting parallel there for sure.
So that death was at the end of episode 24 before the 2-part finale. So let me ask you, what were your anticipations knowing that the finale was next? How'd you feel about Shinji going into it, and how'd you feel what was going to happen?
I had heard that the ending was very different from End of Evangelion and was controversial. I had also heard that there were kind of, I think, time and budget restraints potentially. So it was an ending that a lot of people didn't like. I didn't know what to expect going in. Basically, is the answer to that question.
But how did you feel? What did you think of Shinji now that you've experienced almost the entire series? How did you feel about this protagonist? Did you think different things about him? Was he still a little bitch boy to you? What did you think of him?
I gotta say, having watched the series now, I feel bad for calling him a whiny bitch boy in the films or in End of Evangelion because, my God, he went through some shit. On a physical level, on a spiritual level, on a fucking metaphysical cosmic level, that boy has gone through some shit. And my God. And it makes total sense to me that he is in virtually a catatonic state at the start of EOE, because fuck, dude, he's gone through some shit. I didn't know that these episodes would take the direction that they took. I thought that it would probably bridge the gap between what happened at the... So it would bridge the gap between him having to decide to crush the only person who's ever shown him true kindness, and it being as catatonic as that woman from Night of the Living Dead.
What a reference.
I knew it would have to sort of bridge that gap somehow. I wasn't expecting it to sort of go so inward throughout those episodes, but...
So, comparing how instrumentality is shown between 25 and 26 in EOE, how do you feel about the stark differences between what instrumentality is shown in just 25 and 26 versus the entirety of EOE?
Overall, I thought that 25 and 26 were, they were okay. Maybe like a 4 or 5 out of 10, maybe. No, I'm kidding, man. Like, this is revolutionary TV. Like, this is astounding. These episodes are incredible. I have only seen them the once, but my God, my jaw was on the fucking floor, man. The fucking audacity of Anno to end his show like this is just dumbfounding, and I love it. It's so good. My God. This has been said time and time again, so I'm not saying anything new here, but to take a show which starts as like, a robots punching aliens kind of thing, drastically veer mid-course into Freudian, Jungian, religious, psychological insanity, which wallows into the absolute pits of despair, figuratively and literally, and then to end your show with the most abstract deconstruction of a person's sanity, humanity on a global scale, and the very medium of television and animation all in the same breath is revolutionary. Like, my God. I wasn't anticipating watching the show. I wasn't, totally looking forward to starting on this journey, but my God, Vinny, I am all in on this bullshit. I don't think I've been touched by a show the way that I've been touched by this since Twin Peaks, to be honest. Like, it's so good. My God.
Here's the thing. When we watched Thrice Upon a Time, and you were talking about the ending with Shinji sitting on the beach, and you're like, oh, and it like goes back, it's like de-evolutionizes animation back to animatics and slow stills, like, oh my God, he's gonna love episodes 25 and 26. He has no idea.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think I'm really getting into media that does kind of really interesting metatextual stuff. Not in like a superficial kind of Deadpool, like talking to the camera, breaking the fourth wall kind of thing. I think that's a little bit played out. But just the stuff where the actual medium itself is deteriorating in front of your eyes, and or characters become aware that they're part of this narrative. It is so interesting to me. The first 20 or 30 minutes of the last Matrix film was great. The rest of the film was a fucking stinker, and I hated it. But like the first part of it, first act, was so compelling to me, and the rest of the film was such a disappointment because it didn't deliver on that. Yeah, no, and to think that he did this 25, coming up 30 years ago is just incredible. You can see in End of Evangelion that when he had a budget and when he had time, he produces this masterwork of storytelling. Yeah, surrealism and just, visual knockout stuff. But just to see what he does with, the restrictions that he had in place. And I mean, I'm sure that a lot of the still frames, a lot of the just going back to animatics or doing the pencil sketches and that kind of stuff. I'm sure a lot of that was just born out of the fact that they didn't have the time or money to do what they wanted to do. But just to turn that kind of restriction into something that absolutely becomes just a revolutionary piece of, fuck it, I'll say it, it's art. It is art. This is not an episode. These are not a series of episodes of a cartoon. This is art on TV. Yeah, it's stunning. Stunning.
Here is the best part. It gives you this beautiful story of someone coming to grips with themselves and humanity, but also has text on the screen. Hey, shit is happening at Nerve, and you get a shot of Masato on the ground after being shot. So it does imply that all this shit in EOE is happening, but this is what's really is the ending. Because at the end of the day, this story is about Shinji and how fucked up he is, and he's trying to get better.
And, I mean, talk about audacity. Like, the start of that final episode is human instrumentality is happening. Title card. We don't have time to show you that, so let's look at Shinji. And just like I think I just cackled at that because I was just like, oh my god, like this is like the balls on this guy to sort of say oh, we had all these plans, we can't show you any of it because we don't have the time or the money to do it, but so here's this instead. Yeah, amazing. Oh man, we have to talk about the alternate reality scene, which is probably the most animated portion of the entire episode.
So, when did you realize that it was like an alternate timeline? What moment made you be like, "What the fuck? Oh, this is what I'm seeing"?
It took me a minute, but because what's kind of happening? He's sleeping. It just kind of flashes.
He's sleeping in bed.
He flashes, and he's just sleep. It just cuts to he's sleeping in bed, right?
Yep.
Sleeping in bed. Oscar comes along and is like, "Hey, wake up, sleepyhead! It's your childhood friend Oscar here." Mm-hmm. And then she sees that he has a boner, and he's like, "What do you expect? It's the morning. What? Come on, give me a break." Yeah, Yui and Gendo are in the kitchen, and Gendo's just reading the paper. He's just like,
This is my favorite, best Gendo moment. Eyes on paper. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is, and it's just like a fucking, And then what happens after that?
They're running to school.
That's right. He runs into Ray, who's the new student.
She's running with toast in her mouth because she's also late, so she's eating breakfast.
And she's like. Yeah, he's like, oh, it would be so bad if I was late on my first day. Hope nobody looks up my skirt. And so funny. And yeah, it just evolves into like just a horny teen sex comedy at that stage. It's just, it's so funny, man. And just so absolute, grab the steering wheel and just veer it off course. Narrative-wise, it's so funny.
Here's the thing. Good. I realized what it was. This is just like Invitation to Love.
It is.
This is what you think the show is, but no, fuck you. We'll give you a taste of what your expectations are, but no, the broader thing is better.
And I'm thinking about that, and it's like, I mean, Twin Peaks kind of, it was postmodern in that it was, picking up on, what the genre conventions of what was popular at the time were. So you would have these schlocky soap opera moments, and you'd have these, cheesy sitcom plots and that kind of stuff. But just to go just to lean into it that hard, it's something that I don't think I've ever seen before. To lean into it that hard for, a brief moment and just to just veer right out of it again is, it was inspired, and I loved it. This is what the show could have been. This is not what we got. Nope. Yeah.
So something funny. So all the dating sim games take place in that universe.
Yeah, right.
It's so funny because you have it's the same background. It's like, oh, here's my childhood friend, but here's this quirky new girl. Who do I date? And it's like they capitalized on this shit, and I love it for it.
Crazy stuff.
How did you feel at the very ending when you just saw everyone clapping for Shinji?
I'd seen that GIF of people clapping and saying congratulations, and I didn't know what the context was. I knew that it was kind of from the end, I think, of the series, but I had no context for it. Just gather my thoughts here for a second. It's simultaneously the exact opposite, but also made me feel the same way as the ending of Twin Peaks Part 18. Because it's bright and it's chipper and it's upbeat and it ends on a positive note. Whereas Twin Peaks ended with, darkness and despair and, screaming, basically. But I was just sitting there, after it happened, I was just sitting there gut punched, like, what did I just watch? And how do I process this? Having seen everything I've seen now, how do I process this? And I didn't know how to do that. And I guess knowing what happens in End of Evangelion as well, I was just like, is this a happy ending? Is this a delusion? Is this something else? I don't know how to feel about this. And it really threw me. So yeah, I didn't know how to feel in that moment.
Did you like that? Even Pen was like, squawk!
Yeah. It was nice to see Pen. Oh, the scene where Masato has to give him away.
It's so heartbreaking.
Oh, dude. Oh. Even though nothing really happens, he's just kind of cradling him.
But I think that's Anno's thing of like, look, I gotta get him out of here before I do some crazy ass shit. Like, I love this little freak so much.
Yeah, don't worry, kids. He's gone to live on a nice farm with a nice farmer. Oh.
But,
poor Pen.
But like, the final shot is just a wall of text of Anno talking to the viewer and being like, I want to thank my mother and my father. I want to thank all the children of the world. Thank you and congratulations. How do you feel about that message?
And I think this hits at the heart of the entire show. I've been trying to find the words to articulate this. If I was to put a thesis, a cruel angel's thesis together about what the show is about, it's about the importance of having the ability to be self-reflective and to work on your own shit. I'm not going to get too far into this, but I've got issues with. My father didn't try and artificially evolve humanity or anything, but he was not a great guy, and it has fucked me up more than I've been willing to admit to myself and to others for a long time. And I'm working through that now, and I'm in a lot better place than I was even just a few years ago. But just the ability to recognize that, self-improvement is not easy, and to function as a human being is a struggle, and it's going to be hard, and there's no quick, easy fixes for this kind of thing. It's an ongoing, constant thing. It takes honesty, and it takes self-reflection, and being able to accept that there's things which you're going to struggle with, and things that are going to be difficult, and things that are going to require work. And I think that the central message of the show is precisely that. And I think that knowing what I know about Hideaki Anno and his kind of struggles with depression and other issues, I think that's absolutely, he was working through this stuff, especially towards the midpoint of the show onwards. Like, that's becomes really important. I think that's the central thesis of the show. And I think that final moment is him saying, this is achievable. It's not going to be a quick and easy thing, and it's going to require constant work, and it's not going to feel like, it's not going to feel like success a lot of the time. It's something that you're going to have to keep working on, and it's going to be a lifelong thing. But I think that the final moments there was that kind of breakthrough and that realization for him. And the way that he's articulated that and put it on film, on TV was stunning.
Now, Craig, if you saw this first, would you feel the necessity for EOE or the rebuilds? Would you have felt like, no, I need more? Or would have been sufficient with all this?
Knowing that more was out there, I would have absolutely checked it out.
Mm-hmm.
because if I had seen this first, I would have, done what I had done with Twin Peaks, and I would have, listened to podcasts, I would have read things, I would have, explored that world more, because it's such an interesting and complex narrative. Weaving a story, it was very complex. So I absolutely would have checked out that stuff. I would have checked it out because I would have absorbed the fact that these episodes weren't received that well, and that the film was made in response to that, and just to sort of see that, that would have been something that I would have been interested in. So yeah, I absolutely would have seen that film, and I would have watched the rebuilds out of curiosity.
So with all 26 episodes under your belt, how do you feel about End of Evangelion as a continuation of the story, or as of another finale if this wasn't the finale for you?
I listened back to our End of Evangelion episode that we did, and man, listening back to it now, I totally did that film dirty. I was complaining a lot about a lot of things. I haven't rewatched End of Evangelion, and at the moment it sits in this kind of rarefied canon of films that I have, which I've only seen once, but that I think about constantly. And there's only a few films in that list. The other ones, out of interest, are this film with Andrew Garfield called Under the Silver Lake, which I watched, and it took me a long time to understand whether I liked it or hated it, and ultimately I decided that I hated it because it had some really interesting ideas, but it just had way too many of them, and it just felt like a cheap Mulholland Drive ripoff for a lot of it. Another film on this list is the French film Martyrs, which is absolutely compelling, but has some of the most disturbing and graphic violence you'll ever see in cinema. Most of it directed towards women, which is very disturbing to see. But it just has an absolute gut punch of an ending, which is very compelling. So I haven't rewatched End of Eva, but I've thought about it constantly. And I think that it's super interesting to do a compare and contrast between the episodes, and because the episodes go to some dark places, but a lot of the darkness comes from the fact that to break through and have these realizations, you do have to be really honest and really introspective and confront things about yourself that you keep hidden away. And that's where the darkness from the episodes come from. The darkness from End of Evangelion is just basically comes from the fact that there are forces outside of our control that are actively trying to push their own agenda, on a social, on a global level.
Right.
And ultimately humanity is helpless to that. I think that's where the darkness comes from there. I would have to watch both of them a few more times to sort of really see where the parallels are. But I did notice the shots of, there's quick shots of Masato being, lying in a puddle of blood and that kind of thing, and thought, oh shit, this is where they were going with that, and this is how it kind of starts to tie in.
Now, let's talk about the other ending, Thrice Upon a Time. How do you feel that after these two endings and then a decade of just waiting for more content, and then this is Anno literally saying goodbye all of Evangelion. How do you feel about the Thrice Upon a Time ending now?
What really struck me about that ending is the metatextual side of it. The devolving animation process, and ends with the real life shot of the drone shot of the train station and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that he has used that trope in the series and in the end of it and in the movie, this is the third time that he's kind of used that trope. It's kind of like an evolution of that. Really interesting. I think what Thrice Upon a Time really doubles down on is the whole concept of, yes, this is an ending, but we've acknowledged that all of this material exists, and as long as there are people to watch it and experience it, these characters are going to go through the same cycle. They're going to go through the same process. They're destined to go through these story arcs and and go through these cycles for eternity, basically. the whole scene with Kaoru on the moon with all the, the infinite number of coffins. He's destined to die because he's a character in this show, or in this franchise, I guess, that, that's his fate. And every time somebody goes back and watches that, it's happening again,
Mm-hmm.
Thrice Upon a Time is interesting because it puts a cap on the story, I think, from a creator's point of view, but also acknowledges that this franchise, any part of this franchise, is going to continue onwards. Or any media property, any piece of media, as long as there are people to watch it and the means to be able to do so, people are going to... It's a recurring cycle.
So great. I want to touch on probably the biggest change between the rebuilds on the original series. Mari. Mm. Did you miss Mari? Did you feel her absence? Tell me about that.
No, look, to be honest, no, I think Mari was an interesting kind of part of the films. I mean, I felt like if Mari existed in the series, it wouldn't, they would have found a way to make it work because, because everything is so meticulous in this show. Everything is so thought out. Even, it's so complicated, and often with shows that have these kind of complicated narratives, like, look at Lost or something like that, there's all this stuff, and they keep piling more and more stuff on. There's more and more lore that gets developed, and often it just gets completely lost up its own ass. But this is, for being something that's so dense and so complicated, everything is meticulously crafted. And you can find the explanation there with enough digging and enough, analysis. So I'm confident that they would have found a way to incorporate Mari into that original series without it being an issue. I didn't miss her necessarily. I thought that she's a cool part of the movies, but I don't have too much to say about her as a character, I guess.
Well, speaking about analysis, here's some analysis people have come up with about what she is. Like, why redo the story but add her? Well, most fans today feel like Mari represents Anno's wife that he has since married between the original two endings and now. Because it could be seen as, here's the cycle going again, but I have her now. So I can fight more because I have her now. And Anno has been very vocal about denying this. He goes, he has not appreciated people trying to create this whole narrative that Mari represents his wife, which is like, okay, dude, you're just making it more like that's the thing. So how do you feel about that?
I really like that. And just the fact that the Thrice Upon a Time ends with basically a grown-up Shinji, so a Shinji who is matured to a level where he kind of can accept his flaws and and work on himself, I guess. The fact that he ends up with this new character, I think there's a strong argument that that she could represent his wife. I mean, if he denies it, he's got his own reasons for that, I guess, but that makes a compelling argument. I guess just extrapolating on that is if it didn't represent his wife specifically, she could maybe represent a new beginning almost, or because I'm just thinking like Shinji has gone through this journey in the original series with Rei and with Asuka, even with Masato and or Kaworu, I guess, as fan based objects of affection, I guess. But he's in a new space now. That's not who he is at the end of Thrice Upon a Time is not who he was at the start of the anime, So I feel like Mari is just kind of a representation of a new direction or new potential, new opportunities.
So, Greg, now that you've finished the series, are there any characters you've completely changed on? Any interactions you thought, that's interesting? Anything of that kind of sort?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've definitely warmed up to Asuka a lot. Knowing what I know about her tragic past. That kind of stuff was hinted at, I think, at the end of Thrice Upon a Time, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there was that weird scene where the doll was kind of like life-sized and was kind of looming over her a little bit, which I thought was weird. But just to have that context from the show, I think was really powerful. So yeah, I've definitely warmed to her. Kaji fucking rules. I love Kaji. He's cool as shit. Yeah, I think he was awesome.
One character I think isn't done well in the rebuilds is Ritsuko. None of her backstory is even hinted at in the rebuilds. But where in the series she has multiple episodes about her mom, what is the Magi is, her being in a relationship with Gendo. That's all in the original series. So how do you feel about actually having a character of Ritsuko to see?
It's funny, I was just going to say Ritsuko, actually, because, I mean, she does seem like a fairly minor character in the films.
Yeah, the only thing she does is cut her hair, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, no, she had some really interesting, you know, for being sort of on the, I guess, the second tier of characters, like, you know, more of a supporting role. She actually had a lot of agency and a lot of, you know, she had really strong motivations. You know, obviously there was that stuff with her mum, and I gotta say, for the people at home, the infamous episode with the flashbacks,
The Birth of Nerve.
The Birth of Nerve, yeah, that episode. The scene where young Ray comes out and Ritsuko's mother sort of asks, "Are you lost and do you need help?" And Ray calls her an old hag. I was cackling, and I took a picture of the screen, I sent it to Vinny, and I was just cracking up. And then 10 seconds later, she's being strangled to death. I was like, oh shit, that got dark real fucking fast. Yeah, that was that was a lot. And I think I was texting you, wasn't I? I was like, did she just strangle this kid? Like, fuck, dude. No, but I think Ritsuko did have a lot more agency in the series. I mean, there was all that stuff with her mother, and I know a lot of people shit on it, but I really liked the episode with the computer virus angel. Like, I thought that was cool. And, you know, it was, compared to some of the more revolutionary stuff that happens later, it was a little bit hackneyed with the whole, you know, the red squares absorbing the megabytes of data and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I was genuinely watching it. I was like, I was genuinely tense in that moment. And then it gets that last little tiny blue megabit of data that hasn't been corrupted. And I was just like, oh, like it was, I had a genuine reaction to that. I thought it was really cool. And this is what I was kind of saying before around the angels and how they kind of adapt over the show. So not all of them are huge, enormous monsters that, you know, crush the city. Yeah, I thought they did some really interesting stuff as the series went on with the different angels.
So yeah, let's talk about the differences between angels, because what is infamously known as the worst episode is Magma Diver. The one where there's the embryo in the lava. How do you feel about Magma Diver?
Dude, again, I looked into this, and I think I watched a video today, you know, the best and the worst Evangelion episodes, and Magma Diver was considered, I think, the worst one, you know, from a sample of fans. I really liked the episode. I thought it was cool.
I do too.
I thought it's true. It's not action packed. It does have some of the silliest stuff with, you know, Oscar and the big fat suit and all that kind of stuff was silly.
And then her Ava inside a diver suit.
Yeah, I mean, it was some of it was a bit hokey, but the concept of, okay, we've found basically an angel in an embryonic state. This is kind of the first time we've been able to proactively address the problem of these angels. Every other time it's been, you know, shit, there's an angel here, we need to react to this now. The fact that they were able to, you know, take the opportunity to do something proactive about this problem was super interesting, and I really dug that. I thought it was really cool. Yeah, so I liked that episode. I mean, I think I said this to you off pod, but I mean, the worst episode of something that's as good as this show is, you know, infinitely better than the best episode of, like, Young Sheldon or something, you know, something bad. So, you know, even if it is considered the worst episode, it's still fucking good. It's definitely better than the worst episode of Twin Peaks.
Oh, by far, God.
By a country mile, but yeah.
Jeez. I want to talk about my favorite angel fight in the entire franchise, which is the twin angel and in-synchronization fight. How do you feel about it?
See, again, this is something that in any other show would be like a season 7 scraping the bottom of the barrel nonsense plot. You know, we have to do this synchronized dance to fight this angel. That's weird. But I thought it was charming. I thought it was really cool. I did like that it forced Shinji and Asuka to sort of, work together, and with a limited time, there was that ticking clock element to it as well. And just like the way that they do it is cool. Like it looks cool. I liked the little character moment there with Asuka and Shinji keep fucking it up, and Asuka's just like, "Oh, Shinji, you suck, you Baka, you just, you're just fucking this up for me. He's useless," and all this kind of stuff. And then I think is it Masato just says, "Oh, Ray, why don't you have a go?" And then Ray and Shinji do it perfectly, and Asuka's just like, "Oh, fuck, okay." It's just taking her down a notch. I thought that was great. I like that episode a lot. I thought it was fun.
I love it to death.
The title, "Both of You Dance Like You Want to Win," sounds like a Japanese game show or something.
Coming up after Hole in the Wall.
We now return to "Both of You Dance Like You Want to Win."
Speaking of dancing, Craig, but isn't the entire Netflix dub bad because there's no Fly Me to the Moon? You can't dance during the credits now? Isn't this just trash?
I was going to ask you about the "Fly Me to the Moon" thing, because this was like the end credit music, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That scene of Ray spinning against the backdrop of the moon. The "Fly Me to the Moon" is supposed to be playing there from the original broadcast of this show.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Did this ruin your experience?
No. Because I'd never sort of had it, I guess. So I didn't know what I was missing. I had heard something interesting about that though. Do you know the story of why it wasn't included in the Netflix dub?
It's more or less like, look, let's just get rid of something we don't need to spend money on.
Because that's not what I heard.
Oh, really? What'd you hear?
Yeah, well, I heard that in the original dub, they got permission from Frank Sinatra himself to use it in the original dub because apparently Sinatra was like an enormous anime fan. Yeah, no, he was. This is absolutely a true fact that you don't need to Google. He was a huge fan. He actually approached Hideaki Anno himself and asked if he could be involved in this. His favorite film was Wicked City, and he was just a massive fan. And after he died, his estate basically didn't want to they didn't understand what the show was or anything, so they sort of said, no, we're not gonna renew the license on this, so they had to find something else. But yeah, you don't need to verify this at all. Just yeah.
Oh, Craig, I was worried for a second. I was worried, but no, you're right. You're 100% right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, old blue eyes, huge
fucking weeb. Okay, so, Craig, in any way, do you feel like this was a bad show with voice acting or writing?
I didn't watch any of the dubbed versions. I watched the original Japanese dub. Mm-hmm. I think the answer to the question is no. I mean, apart from some of the sillier elements that we've sort of touched on, which still have their own kind of charm about them, and they are in episodes which have good content in them. I don't know if there's anything egregious that I could point to say this is bad.
The reason I bring this up because so many fucking people, the second they heard that the original English dub wasn't going to be in this, or the original subtitle translation wasn't going to be in this new Netflix version, that they just wrote this off. And I am here to say that you need to give up on what you think Ava is. Because guess what? Back when they did this in the 90s, they weren't really doing it correctly. They would hire random fans to be like, okay, loosely translate this. Blah, blah, blah. What's this gibberish? Let's rewrite a bunch of shit. So, one of the most infamous lines from End of Evangelion is Shinji looking at his hands saying, I'm so fucked up. When the actual translation of that is, I am the lowest of the low.
Nah, that's weak, man.
Now, this creates a conversation like, how far do you adapt something and how far do you translate something? Do I read the words verbatim as a translation, or do I try and adapt this into something? Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
I was thinking about this the other day, actually. There's a Michael Haneke film called Funny Games, and he filmed the original one in German, I think, or Austrian maybe, back in the mid-90s. In about 2005 or so, maybe a little bit later, he remade it basically shot for shot. Oh, actually with two Twin Peaks people, with Naomi Watts and Tim Roth were in it. Yeah, it was basically shot for shot, word for word. Seeing the people speaking German with English subtitles and watching it performed by English-speaking actors, saying the exact same words in English was really jarring. I remember there's one scene where where somebody drops a carton of eggs and some of them smash, and the response that someone has is, "Oh, it's not a disaster," and it just seems like a weird way to phrase that. Like,
right.
If you were adapting it, you'd say, you'd have them say something like, "Oh, it's not a big deal," or or "Don't worry about it," or something like that. But just to have those words, "It's not a disaster," seems really weird. It just seems off somehow,
Right.
So I think that's probably what was kind of happening here, and this is probably the dilemma, the hedgehog's dilemma that a lot of translators have when they're adapting foreign stuff to do a subtitle track. Is how much do you adapt the content verbatim, and how much do you sort of take the tone of what's being said, or the message of what's being said. Yeah, I don't have a clear answer on what the best way to do that is. Mm-hmm. But it's an interesting conundrum.
But at least your answer isn't, fuck this new thing, they ruined Evangelion, it's trash now, no one should watch this new version.
Well, I mean, again, I don't have a history with it, so this is kind of, I'm experiencing this for the first time. So,
but I'm just saying, you're the proof that this new version is very accessible and you get everything. We've been talking for an hour and a half on this, and guess what? That means it's quality. The text is still there. Sure, you can be like, oh, but they should have translated this way, or they should have adapted this way. Like, no, the text is still there. This is still a very genuine and great way to watch the series.
I mean, don't watch the movies first. It's my biggest takeaway. But I mean, I'd agree with that. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with the writing or the dubbing, or I mean, I didn't watch the dub, but the translation of the subtitles, I got the gist of what was being said, and I think that's about all you can expect from a work that's in a language that you don't speak. Is that if you can get the gist of what's being said, even if you don't catch every single word, or it's kind of like Shakespeare. If you read Shakespeare word for word and tried to understand what every single word meant, you wouldn't get the same enjoyment of understanding broadly what's being said and appreciating the artistry of it. It's the same thing.
No, Craig, I want to ask you this. Now that you've completed this and you've talked about how much you love it, are you going to recommend this show to your friends?
Dude, I'm going to recommend this to anybody who will fucking listen. Like, this show is art. This is beautiful. I mean, we could probably start wrapping this up unless you've got other questions and stuff.
Just a few little things, but yeah.
A few little things. Okay, well, I'll save my final thought for the end, because I've got something that I want to sort of close out on.
Well, here's the semi-part 2 to this question, so let me set the scene.
Okay.
You're at home.
Sure.
It's 6 years later. You're just walking around the house, and then you hear your kids are watching TV. You don't know what they're watching, but you start walking past, and you hear Cruel Angel's Thesis. What do you do in that moment?
I make like Angel 1 advancing towards a robot and I rip the TV cord out of the wall like I'm fucking goat-seeing an AT field apart. No, I don't know. I don't know if my kids would respond to the show, to be honest.
I mean, also, I'm like, hey, imagine your kid's 6 years older. Like, of course, this is a dumb question, but I just wanted to hear you just immediately either just attack the TV or just ground them for life.
Or just, yeah, watch this scene. This is really cool. See that thing? That's his mum.
Just ruin it for them.
Wait. The penguin's going to come out of the fridge. What? Penguin? What?
Part 3 of the question. Are you going to try and get your wife to watch this?
Oh, God, no. No way. Okay, actually, I've got a funny story about my wife and anime. This is when we were kind of first dating, so this is like 15 years ago, so a long time ago. Yeah, we had a friend come over from the States to come and stay, and they got drunk one night and went to the video store and went on a mission to find what they thought would be the shittiest movie they could find. And they came back with this movie called what was it called? It was called Mad Bull 34. Have you heard of this? It was like this. It was like a late 80s, early 90s anime about some cops that I think were based in New York, but they were all like anime dudes. Mm-hmm. And the whole story was that there was this, young, shy, virginal cop, who was basically like a 25-year-old Shinji, basically. And he gets partnered with this, this big, gruff, macho Mad Bull. His nickname was Mad Bull. There's a scene towards the start of the film where there's this, I can't remember what happens, but there's like this car crash or something like that, and there's this woman is splayed out on the street, and this rookie cop's like, oh, what do I do? And Mad Bull's just like, why don't you stick your finger up her ass and see if she's awake?
Oh God!
which he proceeds to do. And the woman like eyes wide, and she's like, just slaps him in the face. Like, and I think that's the point they turn the movie off. They're just like, nah. But when I was watching Paprika the other night, though, she sort of came into the room and she's like, oh, are you watching hentai? And I just went, yeah. She's like, oh, okay, cool. Have fun. I just walked out. So, yeah, no, I don't think my wife would appreciate Evangelion, to answer your question.
Oh, that's wonderful. This is great. So, that's great. So now that your journey with Evangelion is basically over, do you feel like there needs to be more? Do you feel like Anno's going to be in 10 years like, fuck it, I'm doing a movie that's set between 2.22 and 3.33? Do you want more, is what I'm asking?
I think my response to that is, if more came out, then yeah, I'd be all over it. I'd check that out for sure. Do I think more is going to happen? Absolutely not. I would be very surprised if Anno goes back to this well. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, dude. If it did happen, I'd be very excited to see what came of it. But honestly, I don't know if it needs it, to be honest. I think, you've got a complete story that has ended 3 times now. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's a way to expand on the story unless you're filling in those gaps, like how the gaps in people's hearts are filled by others during the human instrumentality project. Yeah, unless you fill in those gaps, there's not really anywhere to go with the story, I don't think. But I would be but like Twin Peaks, if more Twin Peaks came out, I'd be very excited to see that. I don't think there's going to be any more. Similar with Evangelion.
There recently was like the 1-year anniversary of it coming to theaters in Japan, and they had a Twitch stream. It was basically like, here's Anno in the chat, ask me anything. He was asked if this was the end of Evangelion. He said he does not believe that this is the end of it as a franchise, but it is the end for him, and that he is willing to give someone else a shot, per some guidelines. Now, he didn't elaborate really past that, but I can imagine the first guideline he has if you're going to do Eva is, hey, don't make this a fucking robot fighting show. Make it something deeper. Make it about the characters. So, how would you feel if, like, 2-3 years you see, hey, Ava's back, Anno is executive producer, which is he's not really going to do something. He's just in the name.
Yeah, he's just...
And then
so
26 more episodes.
I'd watch the first couple of episodes and I'd give it a good, honest go. I would have quite low expectations of it, I think. It would be like if Twin Peaks came back without David Lynch. I don't think it'd be the same. I mean, obviously, there's more people involved than just Anno and just Lynch, respectively, but I don't think it's the same thing without that creative vision and guidance. Yeah. So I would be cautiously optimistic, but I wouldn't have high expectations of anything new.
I am the same way, but I do think that there is side story potential. I think an interesting thing to do would make a series or a movie that revolves around the American nerve branch before it exploded off the face of the planet.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah.
Because, like, you could create 3 new kids and then make a new narrative. You can do the same thing, just differently.
Evangelion, the college years.
Evangelion, America.
Evangelion Nights. No, I don't know. Yeah, that would be interesting. Maybe. Oh, hang on, because that was in Nevada, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's some crossover with our boys from the casino and the
the competent FBI,
the 3 detectives.
I told you to get in that robot.
This is what we do at American Nerve. Because it's all around the same time frame, isn't it? 2015-ish?
Yeah. Oh my! Holy shit! You're right.
It's coming to... Oh, okay. Listen, we're going to have to set up a conference call with Anno. We'll set up a conference call with Lynch. We'll get some coffee going. Let's get our pitch on. Let's do
it. So, like, if anything, this has reaffirmed that Lynch is the only person I would trust to do a live-action Eva, right?
I think so. Yeah. He would never do it.
No.
Like, I don't think the idea would strike him, but...
But yeah, let's close this out. Just like, how do you feel? Your journey with Ava is over. You've seen every little bit. How do you feel now that you've completed the cycle?
I mean, like I said before, this show has hit me like nothing else since Twin Peaks has. There's been great episodes of shows that I've been really, really into. You know, Ozymandias from Breaking Bad, for instance, or... There's an amazing episode of Barry that came out a couple of years ago, in the 2nd season, which, if people have seen that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm watching Atlanta at the moment, which fucking rules. Are you into that?
No, but I know this is the last season, so typically, like, now it's like, look, if I hear something's great, it's probably going to run for 5 or seasons, and then I can just watch it all. So now that I know this is the last season, I'll just do it.
Yeah, get into Atlanta, man. It's really good. Like, it's really good. There's an episode in that in the 2nd season with a barbershop, which is fucking amazing. Anyway, yeah, but nothing... I don't think I've seen anything since Twin Peaks that has just made me sort of question so much. It's made me want to dive into this world so much. Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm all in on it. I want to sort of close us off with something from somebody who is referenced in the show. There's a lot of talk about the hedgehog's dilemma. Mm-hmm. Do you know who coined that phrase?
I did not. Tell me.
No, it was I believe, German philosopher Schopenhauer. Yeah, so obviously for those that have forgotten, the hedgehog's dilemma is the idea that hedgehogs seek warmth from each other and connection with each other, but the fact that they have quills all over their back means that they can't ever get close. In a way, humanity is like that. We seek connection and warmth from each other, but we have our own metaphorical quills which keep us apart and prevent us from getting too close. Schopenhauer also said something really interesting about the difference between talent and genius, as two sort of distinct concepts. So I'm going to read you a little thing here. Talent is being able to achieve what is beyond other people's capacity to achieve, yet not what is beyond their capacity of apprehension. Therefore, it at once finds its appreciators. The achievement of genius, on the other hand, transcends not only others' capacity of achievement, but also their capacity of apprehension. Therefore, they do not become immediately aware of it. So, to put it another way, talent is like the marksman who hits a target which others cannot reach. Genius is like the marksman who hits a target which others cannot even see. And I think that Lynch, through his work with Twin Peaks, and Anno, through his works with NGE, are the marksmen who can hit targets that nobody can even comprehend.
I mean, yeah, look at Anno. He's giving up animation to do live action because when he created Neon Genesis Evangelion, he was asked why, like, what was driving him to create this, and he said, "Look, anime is being saturated by just adaptations of manga series. Just, hey, this guy made a comic, now we're adapting it. The only true innovation is coming from Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki, where they're creating this fantastical narrative and fantastical images. I set out to do this with Neon Genesis Evangelion. We need original ideas and original concepts for anime, or else the entire industry will go stagnant. And I love this industry so much that I will not let that happen."
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. A wise man once said that songs are good and singing brings us joy, and that it is the highest point of culture that the Lilliths have created. Do you know who said that?
P. Diddy.
No, it was Kaworu. So, on that note, do you have any music that you want to take us out with, Vinny?
Yes, I want to suggest the song "Congratulations" by Post Malone. For those at home, we're clapping, we swear.
I'm going to pick a couple of songs from my Sad Boy Anthems playlist.
Ooh, I got one after yours.
All right. So Sad Boy Anthems. I'm going to pick Papa Was a Rodeo by the Magnetic Fields off one of my favourite albums, their 1999 triple album, 69 Love Songs. This is a great listen. Lots of different styles there, but this particular song is very kind of somber and yearning, and I think it just fits really nice. The other song I want to go for something from the ultimate sad boys, my good buddies Radiohead. I was going to pick How to Disappear Completely, which is very apocalyptic in feel. I was also thinking about Talk Show Host, because that's got a real sort of somber tone to it. But ultimately, I think we'll listen to exit music for a film. Just because a lot of the lyrics kind of fit. Wake from your sleep before your father hears us, before all hell breaks loose. We hope that you choke, etc., etc. And it's a great track. Did you had another one, Vinny?
I have another one because, I want to go back to my real viewing of this back in high school when I was 14. I was this just little emo boy trying to understand life and all that. So I'm picking the song, which I hope is on...
Complicated by Avril Lavigne.
Yes, 100%. It defines me as a 14-year-old. I want to pick a song that I would have...
Photograph by Nickelback.
I want you to add those to the actual ending of this episode, you fucker.
Absolutely not happening.
Okay,
absolutely not happening.
It's the song "Not for Nothing" by the band Driveways. It's this band that I've discovered within the past year. I love, but 14-year-old emo me would have just obsessed, made this his entire personality, not shut up about it. So that is "Not for Nothing" by Driveways.
Cool. Very cool. All right, let's leave it there. Thanks everybody for listening to this diatribe about how good Evangelion is. And you know what? Congratulations and thank you. If you would like to get in touch with us, please do. Our email address is tp@gmail.com. Or you can write to us courtesy of the Geo-Front inside the Black Moon of Lillith, Tokyo 3. nice to talk to you, Vinny, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.